Good evening, everyone. I hope English is good enough. I wish I can speak Spanish. I have invested my entire life studying English, and my English still sucks. There's so many things to say. First of all, I am not posing as a hero or as a savior. In fact, my problem is with the saviors, because the saviors only exist if there is a victim. And I don't want to be the victim neither, even though I experience so much traumas and brutality, the worst that mankind can produce. I can never accept to be a victim. To be a victim is to be a Palestinian. This is a Palestinian, the very definition of a Palestinian. It's not a race, it's not an ethnic group, it's a mental syndrome to be a Palestinian. To be a Palestinian is to be dependent on the others without the capacity to create. With that said, I am not a victim, but I know what you tried to refer to. It was a turbulent childhood. It wasn't easy. But this does not mean if we have been traumatized, if we go through difficulty, that we cannot come back stronger. And I'm a living example of what it means to reverse the trauma, to always remember our potential, and to know that we are children of earth, children of existence. To sit down and wait for the savior to come from above or to come from below, that's not my style. But to be dependent on the international community for support, I don't like it. The very essence of our existence is our very breath. Let's all begin there. Without breath, we don't exist. And when everything ends, this is when the last breath is out. So to feel entitled for all the other things and to become violent in the process, to say that I don't have what you have and I have the right to dominate it, is not righteous, is not justice. The culture where I grew up, and I don't mean to speak low against the Palestinians, but in my opinion, and this could be misunderstood, that to choose to be a Palestinian is pathetic. It's pathetic. Everybody has equal opportunity and equal potential. You go to the West Bank, they have the same soil, they have the same potential, they have the same sun, the same God, the same earth. What is preventing them from creating what Israel has created so far? There is no justification. There is no explanation except being a dependent sheep waiting for help to come from outside. And all of us in this room understand that help does not come from outside unless we take a step towards progress, towards evolution, respecting the universal laws. To sit down and wait for help, and when the help does not come, to become violent, to be attracted to the harvest. Many people consider the conflict is about land, and we tell them this is not a dispute over land, it's more of a fight over the harvest. They prefer to take it already developed. They want to dominate Tel Aviv. They want to dominate Paris, Madrid, Andalusia. It's more attractive when it's ready and blossomy. But to have the power to say, I take it as a desert, I turn it into agricultural, then I turn it into industrial, then I turn it into a superpower. I can do whatever, and my limits are the skies. This is Israel. So as someone who grew up in that culture, I reject completely the victim mentality, the victimhood, and all the ambitious ideologies that are trying to dominate, I think will only lead to violence. This is the false narrative that everybody is referring to, the narrative of a victim. And I think this has to come to an end. Everybody has the power. Everybody has equal potential of growing and creating. Hence, I am not a Palestinian. Also, I am not Israeli. I only represent myself. I lived almost half of my life in the Palestinian society. On that authority, I speak. And I have been in friendship with the Jewish people for the past 20 years. And I know both cultures. I know their weaknesses and I know their strength. And I hope at some point, those who live in darkness will choose the light, will choose to take responsibility before they seek equal rights, to think, am I responsible citizen? And no one should ever feel entitled for something if they have not earned it. I hope that this is enough introduction, and later on we can go through the more practical stuff. But this is my moral and philosophical stand.
Well, let that sink in. And you were talking about Palestine, Palestinian identity. And I've heard you talk about what is Palestine? What is being a Palestinian?
This could be the biggest question of the century. What is Palestine? Many people think that Palestine is a country, is a nation, is an ethnic group, is a human race. And in reality, Palestine is non-existential. And I don't know why you're here. I don't know if you are pro-Hamas or pro-Palestine, pro-Israel, anti-something. It doesn't matter. This question must be answered. And I see many historians, even historians, intellectuals, philosophers, even scientists falling in the trap of Palestine. What is Palestine? If we look back in history, there was a Palestine. And Palestine was a creation of the British Empire. The process began 1918 after the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Took place in 1922. It was terminated in 1947-48. The lifespan of this entity is approximately 25 years. And that was a colonial entity as a result of the collapse of the Ottoman Empire. Was created by the Brits. It's not an Arab creation. It did not have an ethnicity. It was a colonial entity that included Arabs, Christians, Jews, Druze, and other ethnic groups. This is a fact. This is not a propaganda. And many people don't want to accept the simple truth. The travel document that you see today, that is written on it, Palestine, in English, in Arabic, and in Hebrew, was made by the British Empire. The British mandate of Palestine. Where did Palestine come from? It's a Roman. Originally was created as a hostile name against the indigenous of the land. The only people who have evidence of their existence for more than 5,000 years, which is the Jewish people. With currency, with Holy Scripture, with the Bible, with artifacts, with ruins that represent their empires, their kingdoms, the temples, archaeology, overwhelming evidence of their existence more than 5,000 years older than history of the most resilient ethnic group. If you look around, how many ethnicities out there actually survived more than 5,000 years of time and age and all the odds? You will not find many ethnic groups that actually survived. So here come the Romans and the Brits at that time, and then the Palestinians, the Arabians, the Muslims, who want to deny the Jewish people as the indigenous of the land. Where this is going against science, is going against archaeology, is going against God. And why do they deny it? We need to ask ourselves, why are they in denial? So anyway, they created all these false identities. Palestine is one of them. And it's not coincidental that many people love the identity Palestine because it's only depending on the destruction of Israel, the annihilation of Israel. So all the anti-Semites come today in the millions. And in fact, their objective is not Palestine. They don't care for Palestine. Even if you give them a Palestine, they don't know what to do with it. Like someone who's craving for a woman so much, but we give him the most beautiful woman, but he doesn't know what to do with it. This is the reality. It's not a gift you give them, and from there, they're going to actually thrive and grow. If they haven't built it, if they haven't earned it, then they don't have it. So not to go that far, Palestine is non-existential. Nothing can satisfy it. It's a global phenomenon today. And I describe it in many times that it's a black hole. You know what a black hole is? It can swallow a galaxy because nothing can satisfy it. And also, not to mention, who claim to be Palestinian or Palestine? All of them are opposite extremes. If there was no common enemy, that is Israel in this case, they would kill each other. So in this situation, with all the facts provided, facts that defy all the propaganda out there, I say that the only conclusion of Palestinian Palestinians, that is only a violent ideology that is dependent on the destruction of that is real. Israel is real. Palestine is nonsense. And by the way, I know this is a long answer, But when I grew up thinking that I was Palestinian, they wanted us to be Palestinian. They said, you go to the checkpoint, you throw stones, Molotov cocktails. If you die, you're a martyr for Allah as children. This is how they indoctrinated us. And they had expectations from us, the parents, the society, the culture, the political leadership, that we all must die for Palestine. The only thing, we never asked them, what is Palestine? We never thought, because throughout the years, I thought we were Palestinians because there was a country as Palestine. Or I thought we were an ethnic group called Palestinians. How many years later, when I came to realize, oh my God, we are in trouble. There was no such thing as Palestine. And today you go ask millions of people who claim to be Palestinians, whether they are in the West Bank, Gaza, or worldwide today. Ask them the question, what is Palestine? And they don't know how to answer it. What makes you a Palestinian? They don't know. But ask the Jewish people, what makes you an Israeli? They can write books about it and about their history and support it with facts, with all evidence of what makes them into a people, into a nation. The other side lack all the qualities that qualify them to have an identity. Is this too harsh?
No, go.
I did not mean to offend anybody. What's the objective of these people who say that Hamas is different than the PLO or than the Palestinian Authority? They want us to go into this rabbit hole that it will never end. The truth of such society, it's the same culture. And for those who haven't lived it, I encourage them to go live in such a society for about a minimum of 10 years to understand the culture. So they can see that there is no difference between Hamas, PLO, Islamic Jihad. They are all of the same quality, of the same culture. Hamas literally means enthusiasm. In this case, means outrage. I remember when my father was speaking of Hamas, he was speaking of a monster coming from the sea. The way he was describing it with enthusiasm, with passion. He was so excited about the idea of Hamas. And of course, the romantic slogan from the river to the sea, to emancipate the people, to liberate the victims of colonialism, of the invaders, selling the public the lie that Israel is a colonial entity, the Zionist enemy, etc., who stole our land, as any of them actually had evidence of the land, that they had their name to the land. I mean, today, even the Jewish people, the most wealthiest Jewish people who live in Tel Aviv, in best case scenario, they have a paper that they own a property, but nobody owns Tel Aviv or nobody owns the territory, all of it. But every Palestinian, wherever they are, they own the whole land. In their imagination, I own it. So I went first to destroy Israel in order to go and dominate it. It belongs to me. It's egoistic. It's non-realistic. And the Hamas idea that this is an Islamic land. So now the Muslim warriors, once they prevail after a deadly war with Israel, which could lead to the death of millions of people or to the destruction of civilization, after that, they have the right to divide the land, and each one of them is going to sit on that part of the land. But I'm afraid once they achieve that goal, they will kill each other. So their fight is over dirt. Israel's fight is for life. It is not about land. It's not about the material. It's about what you can make out of the material. Take the substance, put it together, and create something magnificent. This is the outcome of creation. It's not about give me this part of the land. It belongs to me. It belongs to my ancestors. The moment anybody claimed that, they are idiots. They don't know better. So Hamas now, to justify and convince themselves that they have the right to slaughter humanity, children, women, killing people indiscriminately. And this is what Hamas demonstrated. This is my father's organization. And of course, the distance between my birth and today makes me forget even where I stand. The distance is vast, where sometimes it's very hard to explain, but this is their objective. They have been killing people indiscriminately, not only on October 7th. I mean, many people forgot about the Hamas suicide bombing attacks, or maybe they did not hear about them. Maybe it was a minor terrorist attack to them, but Hamas did not differentiate between women, children, Arabs were killed in suicide bombing attacks, Americans, foreigners. They targeted schools, hospitals, synagogues, beaches, clubs. Everybody was a target. Everybody has been a target. for Hamas. And this is why during the Hamas suicide bombing attacks, I had to make a moral decision. And I was like, this is not normal. While I was in a society, what you call Palestinians, and the people's attempt to differentiate between PLO, PA, and Hamas. Take it from a first-hand experience. During the Second Palestinian Intifada, when a bus or a school or a university blew up, people celebrated in Ramallah. This is my hometown. It was a big day for Palestine, inflicting pain on the Jewish people. As long as the Jewish people were suffering, the Palestinians were happy for one day at least. That's the mentality. In a society where they all agreed on evil, not only Hamas. Take Yasser Arafat, for example, where the Nobel Peace Prize, where it's coming from, Norway? Is that where it's coming from? So Oslo. So they rewarded him with the Nobel Peace Prize. One day my father told me, let's go to a meeting with Yasser Arafat. It was the last minute. Take me there. I go with him. And he said, why don't you come with me? I go with him into the meeting. And here is the Nobel Peace Prize winner with all the Palestinian factions. All of them. All the PLO representatives were there. Mahmoud Abbas was one of them. The Palestinian president today, he was here, happened to be in Madrid tonight. He was in that meeting. Now you may think that I'm exaggerating, but the decision of the majority of all the Palestinian factions was to go back to the suicide bombing attacks. And Yasser Arafat approved it. That was the first information that I give to Israel as part of my job about Yasser Arafat's connection to the suicide bombing attacks. I had the report. Everything was written. I did not write it. They wrote it. And I had a copy of it. At that time was Ariel Sharon was the Israeli prime minister. He could not keep it. And this is eventually what led to the sanctions of Yasser Arafat during the Second Palestinian Intifada. So we're talking about con artists that all of them praise violence. They agree with it. Yasser Arafat, towards the end of his life, he was saying in Arabic, Al-Quds Rayhin Shuhada bil Malayi, which means to Jerusalem we're going as martyrs in the millions. How can you reward people like this? How can you legitimize them? How can you differentiate, say that this is Hamas, very violent Islamists, and this is a nationalist? No, all of them agree. Look today at the Palestinian Authority. Have they condemned Hamas? Even though Hamas is their bitter enemy, they hate Hamas so much. Hamas killed the Fatah members. Go back to 2006, 2007. They threw them alive from the rooftops in Gaza. This is what Hamas did to Fatah. So today, I don't understand why the Palestinian Authority hasn't condemned Hamas genocide on October 7th. To just have the moral responsibility to say what happened was wrong, does not represent us. But instead, they have been working around the clock to delegitimize Israel globally. All the operation, all this propaganda, the propaganda machine that Israel has been pushed to the corner is the work of the Palestinian Authority. And their president is here getting legitimacy by your prime minister. So with that said, I don't want to go back to history. Since October 7, it's very obvious. There is no difference between Hamas. There is no difference between anything related to Palestine. It's a sick ideology. It's a deaf culture. It's very violent and nothing can satisfy it. I don't like it. It's very similar to the Nazi ideology. Okay, with all this said, you ask me, who am I and on what authority I speak? I am not a Palestinian. They wanted me to be a Palestinian, and this is something that I choose not for myself. I am an Arab. This is my ethnicity. There are Arabs who live in that region. That's an ethnic group. Arabs and Jews can coexist. That's a possibility, even though today I see the Arabs complicit in the Palestinian crime. They choose to be Palestinians. Arabs, Persians, Jews can coexist. But it has to be on the foundation of truth, that each party would recognize each other's right to exist. And I don't see a problem with Israel recognizing the Arab people and the non-Jewish people right to exist worldwide. The Jewish people coexist everywhere. You see them in the world. There is no problem. You want to be non-Jewish, it's your problem. We're not going to kill you or try to dominate you for being non-Jewish. But do the others think the same way towards the Jewish people? And that's, I think, the fundamental problem. So, long story short, Palestine and Palestinian is a violent ideology. There is no difference between Hamas and PLO. And I don't like the game of a good cop, bad cop. They both serve the same master. And in this case, they serve the devil. They serve death. And they have to come to the realization that Israel is going nowhere. I personally stand with Israel. I personally fight with Israel. And I know that Israel's fight is righteous. And to kill Jewish people based on their ethnicity, based on their religion, based on their ethics and value systems is totally rejected. And anyone who claims to be civilized or a decent citizen who does not stand to the right side of history with those who have been brutalized based on their religion, this means that they are complicit in the crime. They are complicit and partners with the evil forces that is aiming to destroy humanity and destroy civilization.
And yet, we see in the streets of Madrid, in the streets of Western capitals, all these demonstrations that go beyond expressing sympathy for some victimhood of the Palestinian people, actually support armed struggle, what they call resistance. And it's shocking. We even subsidize it, right? We pay for the supplies. We pay for the paper slay of the Palestinian Authority. What's going on in the Western Wall? And why should we care? I mean, other than, yeah, it's wrong in that part of the region. Why should we care?
From the beginning of this conversation, I told you why I don't like the rule of the savior. Because many people today, they are posing as the saviors of the victims. And the Palestinians, in this case, are seen as the victim. So without a victim, how can they become the saviors? And the savior is a very nice status. If I am the one who's going to save the world, no? So many hypocrites found themselves suddenly on the higher moral ground. And I tell them, no, you are not. You are not. You're just going with the flow. With the flow right now that there is a perpetrator, and that's Israel in this case, and there is a victim, and those are the Palestinians, of course, by the name of all the false allegations. Let's begin. Occupation. But if there was no Palestine, if Palestine never existed, how can it be occupied? It's immediately their narrative is deflated because it's sitting in air. Then they say there is apartheid. But we tell them we have 2 million Arabs in Israel that actually have equal rights and they don't have equal responsibility because they are not required to serve in the army to do the difficult, more risky responsibility. Israel is not forcing them to serve in the army. Yet, they have the right to vote. And they have all the other civil rights, just like any other Jewish citizen of the state of Israel. So then what apartheid we're talking about? Apartheid. Then they say ethnic cleansing. But we say if it hasn't been ethnic cleansing, then how the population grew from 100,000 to 5 million? Then they say genocide. And we tell them, well, the dictionary tell us that a genocide is based on ethnic and religious background. And in Gaza, the war has not been based on ethnicity or religion. It's basically a war against Hamas, and the civilians have been warned to evacuate again and again, where the IDF had to expose its plans in advance to the enemy society in order to minimize the civilian casualty. So how can this be a genocide? Millions of leaflets, millions of text messaging and phone calls to the residents of certain districts to evacuate. Like how much Israel can do in a war against enemy. Yet they still say genocide. And they drag Israel to the international courts. They put Israel on as a suspect. They make Israel into a suspect. They invert the narrative so fast. Israel suffered a genocide, which was a very clear case of a genocide and ethnic cleansing on October 7. Then, within no time, they invert the narrative where Israel becomes the perpetrator and the Palestinians became the victims of a genocide. So fast. So these people go with the flow. Many of them, they are motivated by hatred, anti-Semitism. They found an opportunity to be righteous suddenly. But if you look at them, you will find that they exist of opposite extremes. Like, for example, queers for Palestine. They would be butchered in Palestine. They would be butchered in Ramallah or in, like Douglas Murray say, chicken for KFC. Okay, you will find the feminists supporting Hamas extremists. Well, Hamas does not believe in women's rights, period. And they take the Palestinian flag waving all over the place. It's a hateful symbol. We just came back from Montreal and they were so aggressive down the streets, taking advantage of freedom of speech, exploiting the Western freedoms, taking over campuses, Harvard, Columbia, UCLA, the most prestigious universities. And we tell them, why are you targeting educational institutions? They are targeting Manhattan, the major cities, the same group that could have been Occupy Wall Street. And listen what they say. They say free, free Palestine. They want it for free. They want a free thing. They are telling you the truth. And we tell them there is no such thing as free Palestine. You had your opportunity for the last 70 years to create a Palestine. And Israel was okay with that, but you failed. So why are you coming today to blame me for your failure? And now I'm supposed to give you a free Palestine. And others, of course, they think free Palestine. They think Palestine is a prisoner in my backyard. And am I supposed to go and free the Palestine for them? If you tell them Santa is a prisoner on the North Pole, they're going to say free, free Santa. They're not even aware of what they're chanting. So many people, many opposite extremes came into this crowd called pro-Palestine. I think their essence is not pro-Palestine, it's anti-Israel. This is their real nature. And behind them, 2 billion Muslims who took the side of Hamas because of the religious and spiritual connection between them and Hamas as Muslims. And they abandoned their moral responsibility to say, killing infants, killing peaceful people in their living rooms. A terrorist attack is something, but to go into people's houses where they feel the safest, away from the human cruelty, this is the last resort where I don't want to think for a moment that I cannot be safe in my backyard or my living rooms. So all the people who scream free Palestine, the pro-Palestine, they are not on the right side of history. They are complicit in the crime because they have validated Hamas atrocities. They have justified violence by the name of lame causes. That is include occupation. Who cares? Occupation. What's your limit? What's your limit? Are you fighting soldiers? Are you fighting combatants? But in the meantime, they have been killing civilians indiscriminately. Hence, their actions are not virtue. They are evil and they have committed a capital crime and they must be punished for their crime with no exception. My family is on the other side. There are no exceptions. This is where I draw the line. I cannot justify and validate the killing of innocent civilians, the kidnapping of infants, the kidnapping of Holocaust survivors, peaceful, liberal communities, farming communities, the killing of Thai workers, what the Thai workers did to Hamas, and how many other nationals. So now they come and they group by the name of Palestine. What does that tell you? It's just telling you that they are a hateful group at their very essence. And I'm really shocked that they have exploited the Western freedoms to dominate the streets, to intimidate the Jewish communities, and to intimidate many others who stand for the truth. So maybe your prime minister is a pro-Palestine. Maybe he is a bad Palestinian. And maybe this is his very nature to be anti-Semite for recognizing the Palestinian state, a Palestinian state, where he wants to place the Palestinian state. He thinks that he has the authority over Israel, a superpower that has the historic right to the land, that is a developed state, that is a state of diversity, that has all ethnic groups in it with equal rights. He thinks that he can force the state of Israel to compromise its security, its very existence. Who do you think you are to decide on behalf of other democracy to force or enforce a Palestinian state? This is the nature of Palestine. This is the nature of Palestinians. This is the nature of everybody that supports them. They are clowns. They don't know what they are talking about, or they know exactly what they're talking about, and this is their opportunity to delegitimize Israel. Let's begin with the two-state solution, which is very similar to the two-husband solution. Let's see how it's going to work out, especially when the woman say, that I choose only one husband, but then the stranger come and say, I want to be the second husband. That's a two-state solution. And imagine Just imagine. I know it's a wild imagination. If the Spanish Prime Minister decide to give Andalusia to Mahmoud Abbas Abu Mazen and say, you know what? Historically, this is known an Islamic land. Take the property and build your Palestine in it and make your capital Cordoba. This is how awful is that. If you're really very generous and you want Palestine to happen, why don't you give them like half of your country? Try to convince the population. But why offer in other people's land that does not belong to you? For your information, for those who have never been to what's so called the West Bank, Palestine, I could cross the country from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordanian River on a motorbike in less than 1 hour. This is how big this country is. So the attempt to, first of all, it's very hard to get an elephant into the eye of a needle. But then when we start talking about 2 elephants in the eye of a needle, this means that we are insane. Not to mention that the Arab state was possible back in 1948, back in 1967, back in 1973, back in 1988, back in 2000, when the Palestinians, ideologists, had the opportunity to establish their state, but they rejected. It's not in their interest to build a Palestine. Their objective has been the destruction of the state of Israel. If their objective has been to establish or construct an Arab state, whatever their name is going to be or would be, they would have it by now. But to establish a state, to establish a nation, requires selfless leadership that wants to serve the people and work very hard to do such a project. This type of leadership would be crucified at the end of the job. Nobody would say thank you. People would kill them to do the right thing. But instead, they prefer to be global gangsters, bullying everybody, blackmailing the superpowers for more funds, and in their interest, the conflict to continue for eternity. So now the international community has been bending to this blackmailing, to this bullying, to a culture that has been willing to sacrifice its own children for political and financial gain. And what I tell the international community, first of all, before we talk about 2 Palestinian states, let's talk about this culture that has been sacrificing children. And why are you rewarding such criminals? Every time they sacrifice thousands of children, they have been gambling with children's blood for political and financial gain. And every time you reward them to validate their violence. You validate 70 years of this game. That's the international community. And you would think for a moment that after October 7, that this game came to an end, that the world now see the brutality, the barbarism documented by Hamas, by Palestinians, and what's so-called civilians in Gaza who raped, kidnapped, killed, burnt, destroyed, ethnically cleansed 20 peaceful communities on October 7. You would think democracies would all get united to say, no, you know what? We believed you in the past, but now we cannot. This is a red line. You just committed a genocide. Enough of that. Instead, the United Nations failed to condemn Hamas atrocities as a terrorist organization. The United Nations, I wish it stopped there. Your government recognized a Palestinian state in the middle of the war before even we rescue the hostages, before we remove Hamas from power. By doing so, they legitimized the Palestinian violence against the Jewish people. But what they did not think about, that today they legitimize and they reward violent Palestinians in the Middle East. By doing so, they automatically invite violence to their backyard. Because tomorrow, the Islamists here in Europe will say, Andalusia is an Islamic land and we want to reclaim it. So what would we do? Especially if they gain more momentum and more power. It's the same situation. Betraying Israel today, we will have to pay the price tomorrow. With that said, we are in the same boat. All democracies are in the same boat. All civilized people are in the same boat. It doesn't matter your background. Jewish, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, all of us must get united and reject this Islamic ambition, whether if it's by the name of Palestine or by the name of Andalusia. The international community, the United Nations, the International Court of Justice, they are baseless. When they say international law, I want to ask them, who wrote the law? The law, for those who have forgotten, was written by the superpowers to the weak. The victors wrote the international law for the defeated. With that said, what kind of law when we have the superpowers who have the right to veto it? So you say this is a law, but then we have 5 permanent superpowers sitting in the Security Council that they can say anytime veto does not apply to us. Then what's the point? So there is no such thing as international law. And all the resolutions regarding Palestine, they are baseless because they are motivated by political agendas by the superpowers, whether it's Russia, China, and the Arab oil money that has a great influence in the policy making. With that said, I reduce the international law to its very nature, the rules of the game. Very big difference between international law, a universal law, and the rules of the game. And you know what is superior to the international law? It's the laws of cause and effect. This is how the universe works. The laws of karma, that nothing can go in void. What happened on October 7 cannot be forgotten just in 1 week, while the international law and the international communities have been trying desperately to force Israel to surrender, to accept defeat. And Israel cannot accept this. I cannot accept it. Even if Israel accept that, I will never accept, even if I have to fight eventually with my bare hands for my freedom. I will never agree to be ruled by savages. When they see a baby in the curb, they decide to kill the baby. This type of savages don't have even a place among us. So with that said, international law, I don't care. Does not apply to me, and I hope it does not apply to Israel. What applies here, cause and effect. And from the early beginning, some of you saw me saying that this is going to be dealt with according to the desert law. You know what the desert law is? Go figure. Hamas cannot get away with their crime. And when people ask me, what about your father? And I repeat it again, and I know this is not easy to say. I said, there are no exceptions in this case. This is a capital crime that requires capital punishment. End of the story. I don't want to hear from what's his name, the Pakistani guy on the ICC that happened to be a Muslim. We don't want their influence. I hope that Israel continue to be determined all the way to victory until we remove Hamas from power. I don't know the entire compromise that is happening, but I know that the Qataris have been buying real estate, utility companies. They have been controlling educational institutions by sending billions of dollars of donations. Like in the United States, everybody was shocked when we realized that Qatar is donating hundreds of millions of dollars for some educational institutions where they suppose the president or the administration of such institutions, they were supposed to report any donation that was substantial, but they never reported that. And that was against the law. Because when Qataris or Saudi Arabians, Arab oil money, when they are able to compromise our education, our politicians, our energy resources, our bankers. And today, I really don't know the depth of this compromise because this is not my field, but I can feel it that we all have been compromised. When Qatar, for example, host Hamas, fund Hamas, and Hamas leadership still immune on the Qatari soil after committing their crime. And the mighty of the United States of America cannot pressure Qatar to extradite, that's the word, extradite Hamas leaders to the United States, as we have a situation of American victims, American hostages, allies. What does that tell you? They have influence. Are they intimidating our bankers? Are they intimidating our economy? Do they say, if you don't do this, we're going to withdraw our investment? How far, how much have we been compromised? And you can see it. So today in Europe, we see that in London. It's a very clear case. We see it in Paris. We see it everywhere. And I don't know why our politicians are allowing foreign entities to have actually a foot in our cities, our pride. Why the Saudi crown prince, you call him? The other day he bought the Mona Lisa. They're buying everything. They think they can buy everything, as they buy women, they buy property, buy cattle, they buy everything. they cancel the women of their society, but then they import women from Eastern Europe and from Russia and etc. And they put them in Dubai to make it look like a free land. What is this? So there has to be a policy. On one hand, they control and they compromise our politicians. And I think slowly, our politicians have been bending. And I don't want to say they are already on their knees when it comes to the Islamic affairs. On the other hand, we have invasion of millions of Muslims into the European continent. This is very, very dangerous what's happening. So if you ask me, where do I see the European continent? Where are you heading? Where we are heading, I include myself. Because when I come to Paris, when I come to Europe, when I come to Spain, to Madrid, I want it to be the same way it is. I don't want to see it becoming an Islamic land. I don't want to see women in burqas, basically. Women are, they're like half of the society. In the Arab world, in the Muslim culture, women are canceled. They are treated like property. And what is a society when you enslave women? What is a society when you abuse children? What is a society when you validate violence? And this is why they are way behind, taking advantage of the natural resources and abusing them to spread their indoctrination, to spread their sick ideology. And now they control the media, they control investments, bankers, etc. So, and there are 2 billion people. So, but we are still the majority. It's not only Europeans. Many times I said, we cannot let the Jewish people now down, not because many of you are Jewish, that Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, and Muslims from around the world need to send a very clear message. We must get united to tell the Muslims that we don't accept your intolerance. We believe in diversity. We believe in all colors of life. We must give women protection. And we cannot dehumanize those who are not Muslims. And as long as you believe in that, then we are at odds. Instead of giving them the opportunity to come and invade us and take advantage of all our systems, and now we are under their mercy. So this is, I think, next time in the elections, next time we must vote for the leaders who are not afraid of such totalitarian authoritarians who want to dominate the world. And I hope that this, now that we are aware of what's happening with Israel, that we see the future of Europe. And by the way, if you want to see the future of Europe, just look at Lebanon. Lebanon is a Christian country. It has been invaded by Muslims, Shi'is and Sunnis. They turned the country into ruins. There is no economy. There is no value of anything. At some point, Beirut was the Paris of the Middle East, where women had freedom, the nightlife, everything was thriving. Great economy. Today, you look at Beirut, and Beirut is very, very sad, filled with Islamic rats all over the place. So with that said, and I don't mean to go too extreme, if we don't stop them now, this is an invasion. Eventually, they're going to turn it into the new Lebanon. They're going to turn it into Gaza. This is what the Islamists did. They're going to turn it into Afghanistan, into Pakistan, into Iran. Look at what the Islamic Republic did to the Iranian people. That's Persia, one of the most ancient civilizations, most brilliant people. Now they are in slavery to the Islamic revolution. So with that said, we must wake up. And the first step we do by supporting Israel in this war, because if Israel does not prevail, they are coming here. We are validating them here, and they are going to do a lot worse than what they have done on October 7th.
It's 2025. America's debt is over $37 trillion, and the dollar just had its worst crash since 1973. That puts your savings and your family's future at risk. That's why we trust Alpha Omega Gold, a company that stands unapologetically with Israel and supports Stand Tall Israel. Visit ao.gold/stand to claim your free precious metals wayfinder guide, or call 1-855-426-4653 today. Protect your future before it's too late.